recently interviewed Burger Britz, the new business development manager at Biodesign Structural Engineers. He plays a vital role in the building stabilization department. Biodesign is based in Stellenbosch, but the team takes on projects across the country. Burger has inspiring views on leadership styles and business growth, and we've discussed a lot of aspects in the construction industry in South Africa today. Join me to learn more about this exciting niche market the Biodesign team services. Let's talk business. Hi, Burger. It's so nice to have you on the Strategy Maker podcast this morning. You are actually my second guest. And of course, I need to go full disclosure with our audience. You are my second born son. So it's so nice to interview family, and I'm looking forward to an exciting time with you. So please tell our audience a little bit more about who's Burger Britz.
Yeah, so thanks, Mom, for the opportunity of having us. And yeah, we are really keen and really blessed that you asked us and considered us in doing the podcast. So yeah, thank you for that. And yeah, just a little bit backstory about who I am. I was born in Bloemfontein, born and bred there, went to school in Bloemfontein. Studied at the University of the Free State, and then worked for a couple of years in Bloem after my studies. And then in 2017, me and my wife, we moved from Bloemfontein to Stellenbosch when I got the opportunity at Biodesign. Before that, in 2015, I got married to my beautiful wife, Joanne. And yeah, in 2017, we moved down to Stellenbosch, and yeah, ever since stayed here, busy with work here. And then last year we had our first boy. His name is Zachary. And yeah, so we are staying in a beautiful place of the country. And yeah, everyone often asks me, will you ever move back to Bloemfontein or to like Joburg or somewhere? And I said, no, there's no chance. It's too beautiful here. Depending on if work takes us there, but yeah, for now we are stuck here, and we are glad to be stuck here.
Yeah, obviously you're part of the fairest Cape, and for the international people, it's the most amazing part of the world. So you really need to come and visit.
Yeah,
okay, so that is who you are. And tell me a little bit more about the business that you are busy working on or with.
Yeah, so we are called Biodesign. We are a consulting engineering firm based in Stellenbosch. The company was started by my boss, Barend Oosthuizen, in 2006. He also comes from Bloemfontein, actually went to the same school as me, and yeah, so we have that connection, stayed in the same neighborhood as well. And then after school, he studied at University of Stellenbosch, and then after his studies, he got a position as a structural engineer at one of the largest consulting firms then in South Africa. Their name was Africon. So he worked there for a couple of years, and then he got another position at a steel fabricating company in Cape Town. He worked there for, I think, 5 or 6 years, and then in 2006 he started his own company called Biodesign in Stellenbosch. So that is that's kind of the backstory of where it started. And then it obviously started out as a consulting engineering firm, and yeah, we are basically design engineers that design structures and buildings, and and that's kind of the service that we offer on that side of the company. And then in 2008, he bought a lot of equipment to start kind of a second division of the company that we are calling building stabilization side of the company. Yeah, they kind of bought the equipment. There's a bit of a backstory that I will get into a bit later, of where it started and how it started. But yeah, so we are currently two divisions in one company. The one is the engineering side. The other side is the building stabilization side that we're obviously going to speak a lot more about. So that is pretty much where the company started, and yeah, where we currently are.
How big is your team currently?
We have to count now. So Barent is the PR engineer that's registered with EXA. So you pretty much have to sign off on everything. Then we have three junior engineers, and then we have two draftspersons or draftsmen on that side of the company. And then on the building stabilization side, it's me doing the operations and the marketing, and yeah, pretty much my running that side of the company. And then we have two site managers currently that's leading the two teams that we have. And then we have obviously some of our laborers and general workers that also work here. So all in all, we are close to 10, 15 people, counting in everyone that's pretty much on the payroll of by design.
Yeah. And your offices are in the industrial side of Stellenbosch?
Yeah, so we are based in Plankenbrug. It's the industrial industry or the industrial area of Stellenbosch. Yeah, so our offices are located here.
Okay. So let's maybe start focusing on the structural engineering side first. I'm not involved in construction or really someone to talk about. I can ask the questions on this one. So tell me, what do you guys experience currently on the engineering industry in South Africa? What's the awareness there?
Yeah,
Changes?
so I think to start with, I think it's an industry that fluctuates a lot. I think in terms of people investing in new developments and stuff like that. Um, and I think it's pretty much in the whole economy of South Africa is experiencing the same trends in some other way. But I think the pandemic and the lockdowns and all that stuff definitely had a massive influence in the building industry that we are not a part of. Um, yeah, so I think a lot of new developments were placed on hold because of uncertainties in the country and in the world caused by the pandemic, and obviously a lot of the unrest that recently happened in the country. So you can definitely see how the industry kind of stands back a bit and waits for a bit more security and clarity in terms of what's happening in the rest of the country. So new developments are scarce in a certain sense, but that's kind of the one side of the construction industry. And then the other side of the construction industry is also people building houses and renovating and of new warehouses. There's obviously a lot of companies and businesses that's actually doing better because of what happened with the pandemic and stuff like that, just because they most probably supply some of the crucial stuff that we need and so forth. So you can see that there is definitely ups and downs in the industry, but in terms of people renovating, people building new houses, that industry is definitely flourishing. There is people still needing to renovate old house or something like that, that we are part of. And yeah, currently we are quite busy. It's definitely
That's
the other
amazing.
the other engineering firms that we kind of talk to on a day-to-day basis. Everyone kind of says the same thing. They are very busy. There was obviously a very uncertain time in last year, this time more or less. yeah, so it looks like it is definitely picking up, and people are investing in new structures and new
Mm.
buildings and building houses and all that stuff. So yeah, I think we are fortunate enough to actually be busy, which is a good thing.
That's quite encouraging to hear that people has returned to development in some sense, because I think that's where the hope lies for the country, is that people don't back off and just go and wait it out, but that we will push forward and obviously try to work through the hardships that we're facing currently. Um, are there any interesting trends that you guys see internationally happening in the construction engineering space that you can engage us with or tell us about?
Yeah, so I think there's obviously, if you look at the construction industry, it's very broad, and um, it's difficult to talk about the construction industry as a whole because there's so many different aspects and different things in that specific industry. But I think something that we definitely do see is that um, people are more focused on going greener, building with materials that's more eco-friendly. Um, yeah, and big companies that invest a lot of money in developing their products to be more energy efficient, to be more um, sustainable in especially on the environment as well. So there's definitely a big trend that's kind of hitting the global industry as a whole, but also starting to hit the local
Track.
industry in South Africa as well. So yeah, you can definitely see that that is a new trend forming in the construction industry. Um, and then something that we are actually specifically more involved in is light steel framing. It's a different way of or different material that you use to build houses. It's obviously it's what it's the name say. It's light steel
Mm.
frames that you basically build houses with or structures with. And I think it was developed in Australia and places like that. So that trends to definitely start coming through more prominently in South Africa as well, and people are looking at using different materials and using
Mm.
different methods to build houses and structures. So yeah, you can definitely see there's movement, forward movement in the industry, and people
Mm.
are keen to learn more and use different systems that we haven't thought of in yeah in a traditional sense.
And I suppose the light frames also comes with a cost benefit, hopefully.
Yeah, it's difficult to say. You kind of have to base it on different per project, depending on the size of the project. But as it gets more popular with people actually investing in companies that does the light steel framing, like steel
Mm.
fabricators and so forth, it gets more um, competitive with
Yeah.
traditional ways of doing things. So it depends on project, but and depending on where you actually want to build the structural house or whatever.
Mm.
But yeah, there's definitely value in at least considering something like that. So what we actually do from time to time, depending on the project, is we actually give them a couple of different designs using different materials. And then you can go to a client and say, listen, here's two or three options that you can consider. This is the traditional option. This is a new, yeah, fairly new
Method. Mm.
method to consider as well. And then they can make a decision as to what they want to do. So yeah, it is competitive.
And time-wise, is it quicker to build such a structure, or is it the same thing more or less with brick and mortar?
It is definitely quicker on site. Yeah, so there's a lot of fabricating that happens in a factory or a warehouse. So your time on site is definitely quicker, depending on
Mm.
obviously who the builder is.
Yeah, obviously.
But yeah, we see that slice framing, your time on site is substantially quicker than normal
Mm.
brick and mortar.
Okay. So, to our audience, there's something that you can investigate if you are planning to build a new home.
Yeah.
Um, let's move on to the building stabilization part. Just tell us again, what is your role exactly there?
So my role in the building stabilization side of the business is I'm currently the operations manager. So I'm ensuring that we obviously get work in, I meet clients, do inspections on site before our team actually starts. Then do quotations, invoicing, do the reports that we give to the clients after our work is done. Then also focusing on marketing a lot. Yeah, meeting with other professionals that can refer work to us, like engineers and architects and builders. Um, yeah, and then just making sure that our day-to-day operations obviously function as optimally as possible.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's kind of my role currently in the business.
So you are wearing a lot of hats throughout the day.
Yeah, no, definitely. Some days like today, I have nice clothes on. Other days, I have my side clothes on, and you stand in the rain and you work in the rain and in the mud and
Yeah.
everything. So it is nice to be able to do different things during the course of a week, where you meet high-end clients, to working in the rain, in the mud. So
Mm.
yeah, it is definitely interesting in you're not doing it's not the same thing you do from day to day and just repeating itself.
Oh, well, that keeps things interesting.
Definitely.
So, tell us a little bit more about the foundation settlement part. What problem do you solve for your customers with this method or process?
So what we do is the vision that we obviously call it building stabilization, but there's a specific method that we use in addressing foundation settlement or subsidence issues. There's two issues that we do address. It's foundations that settled or that experience subsidence, and then it's surface beds or floors inside a house or a warehouse or wherever that sagged. And the reasons for that can be many aspects. It can be due to poor construction when they built the house, or the structure of the warehouse. It can be because of changing moisture content in the soil, specifically in very active clay soils. Um, it can be because there's a pipe that burst nearby and it washed out fines, and that caused the foundations to settle a bit more. Yeah, so there's a lot of aspects that we try to first figure out why it happened before we actually do our work. So there's a lot of
Mm.
testing and soil investigations that we do before. And if it's not an obvious thing, like for instance, if there was a burst pipe, it was the burst pipe that
Yeah,
caused it.
obviously.
So it's quite obvious that that's the main cause of the issue. Then you obviously need to address that by fixing the pipe, and then address the foundations that experience subsidence with that. If
Mm.
it's not that obvious, we do a proper soil investigation before we tell a client that injection grouting or our process will be a viable option, and tests include, we do a DCP test. It's called a dynamic cone penetration test. It's basically just a simple and easy method to test the bearing capacity of the soil underneath your foundations, and to see if there's any weak layers in the soil. So for instance, in sand, it's a fairly accurate test to do in sand, because it will give you vital information as to how the soil that actually needs to carry your structure looks like. And then we also do soil indicator tests, where we take soil samples from the specific site to a laboratory for testing, where they tell you exactly how much clay percentage is in the sample that you gave them. They can then through, it's a very technical thing, but you can get the PI levels of the soil that basically tells you how active that clay is, or that soil is. So yeah, so there's a lot of technical stuff that we try to do beforehand if it's not clear, so that we can at the end of the day tell the client, listen, this is the test that we've done, this is what it indicates, and therefore our method would be a suitable method to use in order to actually address the problem.
So you guys are not only, you're not only working when the problem signs up, you're also doing preventative work. So for instance, I'm starting to build a factory from scratch. You can come and do the assessment for me and kind of ensure that my foundation is stable before I start building.
Yeah, so if it's a new development or something like that, it's normally the role of the engineer that's appointed by the client to ensure that those tests are done. Mostly it's done by geotechnical engineers that specializes in soil and soil testing. So if it's, for instance, a new development, they will do a full geotechnical investigation beforehand, and that will actually give you a lot of information as to how deep you need to excavate in order to build new foundations or columns or whatever you need to build. Yeah, but as a norm, we do offer that service specifically for our clients that has foundation settlement issues. Yeah, but for instance, there was a project last year at Palman Foods in Cape Town, where it was a old factory. It was built in the 70s. A part of it was built in the 70s. Another part was built in the 60s, and then they bought the factory over, and they wanted to build or extend their current factory into a much larger factory. So there was an existing structure that they kind of used what they could use. But for instance, the floors were a bit suspect, as they didn't really know what the strength of the floor is. And when they actually did some of the tests, they saw that there was mole runs pretty much everywhere beneath the floor. Yeah, so there was moles living underneath the floor, and obviously a mole run causes voids to form, because they obviously dig holes in the soil, and they had to address that because they needed to put large racks and like mezzanine floors and stuff to actually store their products. And that's where we got involved. So we worked alongside with the engineer and the architect and the building company, and they marked out specifically where those posts are going to sit on top of the floor, and we did our grouting piles at all those positions to ensure that it can actually carry the load.
That's quite an interesting project. I suppose you guys can tell your customers, obviously, also where the different problem areas throughout your region is, because you work throughout the Western Cape and the Southern Cape as far as Eastern Cape. So you kind of know where the problem areas are.
Yeah, we definitely we got a lot of vital information, especially during the drought here in Cape Town in 2016, 17, 18, where we saw that a lot of areas where there's a very active clay, because the drought obviously took out all the moisture in the soil, and that caused to form voids. And as soon as it started raining again, that voids that formed, it at some areas it wasn't strong enough to actually carry the load of the building, and that caused major settlement issues as well. So we know in the Western Cape region where there's a lot of active parts, or parts where the clay is very active, and other parts that it's not very active. But yeah, it's obviously years and years and years of people investigating and obviously yeah, spent lifetimes and careers figuring this stuff out. So it's not too difficult to obviously get hold of that information. But we know there is certain parts around where we work where yeah, it's a different clay, and yeah, clay and sand obviously reacts a lot differently to water and stuff like that. So yeah, we definitely know about those stuff.
I imagine your whole team's properties are very solid.
I would assume so, yes.
I want you to tell us a fun story that your team has experienced in the field.
Yeah, so yeah, we work in in a lot of different places around, call it mal the country, but mostly the Western Cape. So we've done work in Knysna, we've done work in Wilderness and Mossel Bay, across to a lot of work in Hermanus and Kleinmond, and then up the West Coast, we recently did a fairly big project in Lambert's Bay, and in Langebaan, in fact. So yeah, we obviously see a lot of different places and stay in different houses and guest houses and stuff like that from time to time. But yeah, a fun story. There's two stories, quick stories that I want to, yeah, tell you about. The one was we got an opportunity, or we got a project in Majajan. It's a game reserve that's right next to the Kruger National Park. So yeah, we went up there to do the work. We traveled from Stellenbosch to Majajan. It took us 2 full days of traveling there and 2 full days of traveling back. But when we were there, we actually stayed inside the house that we worked on. And it was literally against the Crocodile River. And yeah, there was obviously a lot of animals and game that we saw. Yeah. But yeah, it was quite interesting working there. And the next moment you look up, there's like 10 elephants standing right in front of you next to the fence. And the warthogs literally walked past us and through us. They actually lived underneath the patio where we worked. So they kind of went back home. So yeah, that was a really cool experience to be like in the wilderness and do your work there.
So the job comes with some perks there.
Yeah, no, definitely. And the nice thing about the reserve there is each house has its own safari truck or bakkie that you can use. Nice. So you just phone the ranger and tell him, listen, we want to go for a game drive next morning. So will you be able to take us? And then they take you. And they actually took us on a game drive, and we saw 4 of the 5 big 5. We
Oh,
didn't see a
that's
leopard,
amazing.
but yeah, it was literally 2 hours where we saw pretty much everything. So yeah, it definitely has its perks every now and then. Yeah, that was really a cool experience. And then the other one is we did a job in Hermanus, and obviously Hermanus is fairly a hotspot for people poaching abalone and crayfish and stuff like
Okay,
that.
yeah, yeah.
And we were working right against the ocean. So it was literally the street and then rocks and the ocean. And the next moment we saw the police stop there and start chasing guys away that were obviously poaching abalone, and
Oh
they
my.
start shooting at them, and we stood there and just watched everything, played out in front of us. So sometimes you do see interesting things.
Yeah, that that can be interesting for a team to maybe just say duck and dive, we are not safe now.
Taking an early lunch.
Yes. So it sounds to me that this whole foundation settlement method that you follow, obviously that's quite a niche market that you are servicing. Are there other approaches? Do you have competition in the market, a different version of this?
Yeah, so our method is an alternative to the more traditional method. So traditionally, what people would have done is, and still do, is they call it underpinning. So what they do is they excavate in 1 meter intervals on your foundations, and then they will go roughly a meter below your foundation, and then they cast, they put a rebar cage in there, and they cast mass concrete underneath your foundation. So what it basically does is it enlarges your foundations at this specific position. So in theory, it because you enlarged your foundation, your bearing capacity of your foundation is much bigger, so you can carry the necessary load of the structure. So it might be because they under designed the foundations when they built the structure, or it might be because of bad soil conditions underneath the foundations. But yeah, that's the traditional way of actually doing it. Um, why we are in the market is because we believe our process is much, it's better and less intrusive, especially for people, especially for houses. Um, Obviously, underpinning, there's a lot of excavation that needs to happen, so it's a very messy process. Yeah, and what we also believe our system, or why our system is better than traditional underpinning, is we actually drill much deeper into the soil. So and then we pump our grout from much deeper down. So
Mm.
we can get deeper underneath the foundations than the normal traditional method of doing it. And yeah, so the big disadvantage of underpinning is if there's weak layers in the soil up to like 2 meters below your foundations, they can't excavate 2 meters below
Yeah.
your foundations. It's just too dangerous to put someone
Mm.
in that hole to actually dig the hole. Um, so what happens is they will underpin the first meter, but the second meter deeper down still has weak layers. So you're actually just adding more weight to already weak soil. So it actually
Mm.
just makes the settlement worse. So yeah, that's kind of the big disadvantage of underpinning, and yeah, why we believe our system is much better. So that's a traditional way of addressing that issue. Then there's obviously a lot of, or not a lot of, other methods that you can do. The one new technology that originated in Europe and in the US is like they call it a polyurethane resin. So it's a two-component resin that you pump underneath your foundations into the soil, and
Okay.
those two components react with each other, and it basically expands and creates like an expanding resin foam. And that obviously the same principles that we apply to our grouting is the principles that they apply to their resin. It's just a different material that you use. So we have investigated that a lot, and we have certain equipment to actually do that. And we've done certain projects where we felt that it would actually be a better solution. And yeah, our findings in the last 3-4 years of investigating this in more depth is that yeah, we just believe that our grouting is actually better.
So is the resin more durable than the grout, or is the grout more durable than the resin?
In our opinion, the grout is more durable than the resin. The thing about the resin is it reacts a lot to water. So if your water table of the underground water that's present around your property or the area where you are building, if the water level fluctuate a lot, obviously between wet and dry seasons, we're not 100% convinced about the reaction to that resin, and that's kind of the main reason why we don't use it that often. We've used it where your work underneath the floor specifically is very shallow and not deep, and where there's literally a little piece of gap that you need to fill. So yes, we believe that the grouting is more durable in terms of water present in the underlying soil than the resin, and that's kind of more the reason why we do use the grout.
So as a business strategist, I'm obviously always interested in the business part of the company. And I know that's the part that most people shy away from to talk about, because it can be make you feel vulnerable about your business or anything like that. But let's chat a little bit about, your business model. Is there a specific model that you're following, or how did this all came about on the business side?
Yeah, so obviously I'm not the owner of the business, so it's difficult to really say we are following this specific business model. I think there's obviously a lot of clever people with different business models and things that you can learn about. But yeah, I think the business model that we follow is you work hard and you you make strategic decisions as you go along.
As you go along, okay.
And yeah, and I think one of the big things that kind of is the heart behind the business is that we want to build something much bigger than ourselves. It's not to enrich ourselves. It's obviously the business is there to create a space where you can earn a decent living and provide for your families. But we want to use the business as a platform to really upskill people that's not going to necessarily get the opportunity somewhere else, and really invest in them personally as well. That's pretty much one of the big things why we actually are doing what we're doing. It's not just about doing the work. It is definitely there's definitely a high standard that we set ourselves in providing the best solution and the best service possible to the client, and doing our work in the best possible way. But there's also a relational side to us in terms of our employees and people working for the company, that we're not just building something for them and for us. It needs to impact the generations to come, and that's one of the big aspects of the heart behind the business. And yeah, and I think if you look at, it's not necessarily a business model, but it's more leadership style type of thing, is we see it as servant leaders, where you're not here because you're not the big boss around here. You're actually here to serve your people, and that's why we are doing what we are doing, and we are very invested in our people and know what's going on in their lives, know what's going on in their families, and if there's loss or there's something that went wrong in their lives, we want to be the first guys that want to help them get out of trouble. Yeah, just like a short story. Obviously, most of all our workers that works on site for us, they live here in Kaimandi. It's the local township here in Stellenbosch, and we were away in Langebaan a couple of weeks ago for 2 weeks actually. And when our one crew member got home after that job to his house, they broke in and stole literally everything.
No,
They stole his pots,
no,
his pans, his clothes, his bedding, his
no.
bed, everything. So yeah, and then he came to us and said, "Listen, this is what happened. Like, can you guys please just help me out? Because it's obviously not something that he planned or expected." And yeah, we want to be the guys that they
Approach
are
people
willing
as
to
well.
actually come to us to talk about those sort of problems. So it's not just, and that's again, it comes back to servant leaders. Are you really serving your people in a way that not only benefits the company but also benefits them in a day-to-day personal manner as well?
That's an amazing story to hear, and I'm so excited to hear that small businesses like yours are really not only going for the bottom line, but really to be there for growing people in different ways. And I think we can see a major shift, specifically during and after and working through COVID, that things must change in the business world. Everything cannot be about the bottom line. Obviously, the bottom line is where the sustainability lies, and as you navigate through all the obstacles and new business strategies that you need to consider, the basic framework of the business will stay the people, and you cannot do it without the people. Even if you're only a sole proprietor like I am, you need to sustain this because it can't, otherwise there won't be a tomorrow. And this must also pass on to next generations and upskill them. And that's why I want to ask you the next thing around business. Are there specific business principles that you can see in your team and your business structure that you guys from time to time struggle with? Something that you need to know more about or get a specific skill because you are a skilled engineer or you are a skilled operator on the system, but then you need to do finances and marketing and all of that.
Yeah, so I think it's always interesting, especially when you study and you work in the career that you actually studied for. If I just look at Barron, who's the owner now, he obviously studied engineering, but there's not one class in your engineering studies that actually tells you how to run a small business. Um,
True.
like you can be the best engineer, but you can be the worst businessman, and you won't be able to be successful because you can't run a company. Yeah, so I think if I look at our team specifically, it's a lot of, we actually appointed two young engineers that recently graduated from varsity, and the one thing that I also say is like what I'm doing from a day-to-day basis here has absolutely nothing to do with
Wow.
engineering in the big sense,
Yeah.
and no one
Yeah.
really taught you this. Like for instance, time management. Time management is a massive part of running a business successfully, and obviously in a industry where you basically sell your time, especially on the engineering side, is you need to be able to manage your time very efficiently, and that entails that you need to You need to obviously stay productive during the day, and that comes back to, do you have a healthy lifestyle? Do you sleep enough? Do you train enough? Do you get enough exercise in? Um, yeah, so it all boils down to what you do as a person from in your day-to-day living, basically. Yeah, so just coming back to certain things that I can see people do struggle with from time to time is definitely time management is one of the big things that you constantly need to improve yourself on.
Mm.
And there's obviously a lot of resources that you can go to, but you need to implement it personally into your day-to-day life. Yes, and I think another aspect that I think everyone struggles from time to time is dealing with conflict. Every industry and every organization and business, there will be conflict, and the way you deal with that um, can literally make or break you at the end of the day. So getting skills to actually deal with conflict effectively is a massive part of your day-to-day operation as a
Mm.
company. And yeah, we're part of the construction industry, so there's a lot of problems that comes with the territory. So you need to be able and skillfully deal with that problems and with conflict and people disagreeing and people that's not happy. So yeah, if I can maybe just point out those two aspects in short, yeah.
The things that I often see with entrepreneurs and small businesses is all of a sudden today you have to deal with labor relations and you the HR manager and you're doing interviews and employing people and settling contracts and on the other hand you need to keep the business going. Tomorrow you will be marketing and you were not really uh, trained on all those skills. So you kind of make it up as you go along, and obviously you will make mistakes. But the important part is um, to see those mistakes and to work on them and get the team together. And as a team, say, listen, we don't know much about this aspect. Who wants to sign up to maybe investigate it or and come back and grow the team together on specific business aspects. So I think there's not one solution. Everybody must find their way, but it is sometimes a struggle and hard to do that um, as entrepreneurs and small businesses. So you focus mostly. Well, my feeling is that obviously you focus on business development, project management, marketing, and then on actually being the operations manager. Uh, what aspects you personally would like to know more about in your current role?
Yeah, I think in my current role, I didn't study marketing or anything in business at all. I'm hoping to continue my studies in the future, because I can definitely see that it will add value to me personally, but also to the company. I think the things that I do struggle with is making sure that our marketing strategy and the planning that we do put on a piece of document actually gets implemented in full.
Yeah.
Because I saw and I think it's true for a lot of small business owners, is you sit down and you create this beautiful piece of strategy or marketing thing on paper, and then the next day life just happens and there's 10 other things that
Mm.
need your attention, and a day goes by and a week goes by and a month go by,
Mm.
and you're just sitting there and thinking one day is like, what happened to my marketing strategy? I didn't even touch that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's definitely something to not only put on a piece of paper, but you actually need to implement it in a very systematic and thoughtful way. And the only way that you can actually do it is to spend time on it. So part of your daily routine, you need to set out an hour or 2 or 3 per day and tell yourself, I'm only going to do marketing now. And
Yeah.
then you can divide it into what type of marketing are you going to do, what do you need to focus on. And again, there's a lot of stuff in marketing that you just don't have the capacity in doing yourself, or you don't have the skills in doing yourself, especially with online marketing and stuff like that. Like there's people that literally is complete specialist in fields like that, and you need to know when to ask someone else to do it for you, and rather pay them to do it for you. And yeah, at the end of the day, ensure that it gets done, and it looks professional, and it works on a daily basis.
Yes. So I know you guys have an online presence. You've got a website. You've got a Facebook business page. Are you on LinkedIn?
We are on LinkedIn, yes.
On
Yeah.
LinkedIn as well. Okay, so we will add that on below our video, all your credentials and where they can find you and all of that. While we were discussing the foundation settlement method, I remember you mentioned a video or an animation video that you have available. So if you can supply me with that, I can maybe add it to our video that the audience can see what the method is all about and how it works. So we will be glad to do that. Okay, so back to the business part. Obviously, we all have our blind spots and preferences. So if you get into office and a day that you've got a blank slate, what are the things that you prefer to do and because you like it? And what are the things you put off because I really don't like to go that way?
It depends on how much sleep you get in, especially for me with our little boy. There's not a lot of days where I get into office and there's a blank piece of paper in front of me and I can fill it in for the day. But yeah, I think you obviously tend to go to stuff that you know you're good at, firstly, and secondly that gives you enjoyment as well. So yeah, I think for me personally, um, I do I do like to see results, and I am a very competitive person. So and I'm competing a lot against myself every day. So I want to be able to go home and say, okay, I've done this, and I can very clearly see that this is something very tangible that I've done today. So there might be days where I know there's maybe some maintenance or upgrades that needs to happen with equipment or something like that, where you physically need to fix the thing, or you need to weld or grind or build something quickly. So I definitely enjoy that. That is something that you can walk away from at the end of the day and see, yes, okay, I've actually accomplished something, even if it's not that important. But yeah, that doesn't really come that often in my day-to-day operations. And then yeah, I really do like to meet new clients. I enjoy that a lot. And yeah, with that, it's you meet a lot of different people. You meet a lot of old people that's retired, and they have this property or this house that obviously gives them a bit of problems. And you meet business people that's very busy and in a rush and have the money and just want to get the work done. And yeah, and then you meet all sorts of different people, and it's nice for me to actually be able to go to a site where someone is very worried about their house, or they've been struggling with this thing for years, and then you step in and you can give them solid answers and really do help them, and where you can tell them, listen, there's a way in doing this, and this is the way we do it, and I would love to be able to help you sort out this problem. And that goes with stuff even after we are completed with our work. Is I tell clients, please phone us. Like if you have any questions or you're struggling with something or you don't know how to do it, phone us and we can point you in the right direction. For instance, of like a small example is we recently had a client. She's a middle-aged lady. She's divorced. She's staying on her own. I think she has children that stays with her. But her boundary wall literally just fell over the one day. And then she obviously went to the insurance and she battled with the insurance a lot. And there was kind of legal issues between her and the insurance. And she phoned me one day and asked, listen, what do I need to do next? Because I don't really know myself what to do. And then I remembered we worked for a different client here in Stellenbosch actually, and I remembered he's a lawyer that specifically specializes in the construction industry.
Wow.
And I told her, listen, just phone this guy because I've met him. He's a solid guy.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't have the answer, but maybe he has the answer. And it ended up where I connected two clients of mine, and the one could really help the other one. And yeah, he actually helped her and got the thing resolved. So yeah, I really do enjoy meeting people, and yeah, any challenges that comes our way, I like to be the first in line to tackle them head on and grow as a person at the end of the day.
And what do you don't like? What do you postpone till the end?
I postpone a lot of cold calling.
Yes, that's a hard one.
Very, very draining.
Difficult. Yeah.
Especially for introvert, that's you kind of tend to postpone it or maybe just pass it on to someone else in the office. So yeah, that's pretty much the one thing. And I don't know, I don't really like to postpone things a lot. I postpone making coffee for the rest of the people in the office a lot. But yeah, that's pretty much the one thing.
You can up your game on that one, eh?
I will, yes.
Okay, so let's talk. Obviously, for me, it's all about business growth. Not all about it, but businesses must grow and must keep this sustainability. So what's the future plans? What's your dreams and Baron's dreams for By Design?
Yeah, so I think for our side specifically, for the building stabilization side, we handle the business in a very handling the growth of the business in a very natural kind of way. So that's also not part of the business model that we follow. And yeah, so it's a very systematic. As more work comes in and we reach our capacity as a team, then we appoint new people and grow the thing very systematically and naturally. So we are actually busy setting up a whole new crew that basically is going to run in the West as well. So that's going to be they are actually 50% operational at this stage, but we want to get them fully operational by the end of the month, pretty much. And then so our future plans for the side of the business is we just realized that the field that we work in, it's endless. Like there's no roof that you can hit. You can literally fly as high as you want to, depending on how you obviously manage the stuff and make decisions along the way. But we definitely want to go national at some stage. Obviously in a very natural and very systematic kind of way.
Organic way, yeah.
Yeah, and going national, getting different teams in different regions is definitely something that's in our plans for the long run. And then also internationally, you never know what's going to happen in a country like our country, unfortunately. So going internationally might lower the risk in terms of not losing everything, but losing half of it.
Mm.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
I can understand.
there's definitely scope in taking this technology or this system and service that we offer and make it international. So that is our plan. And then on the consulting side, it's not necessarily growing in in our capacity or our staff, but getting more specialized and more focused in what we actually want to do.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that you are in a economy and in a industry where if the phone rings and someone is willing to offer you business, you kind of might just take it because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
But hopefully we can get to a point where we say no to things that we don't necessarily want to do and like to do and do stuff that we know we are good at and that we want to actually specialize in, that you can get known in the industry for. If someone wants to do a specific thing, they know who to call. So that's the plans for that side of the business.
Okay. And if we talk about the future, obviously we need to know digital, or we need to speak about digital. How has the pandemic impact your guys' digital approach to the business? Not only for marketing purposes, but also for operational purposes.
Yeah, I think obviously when lockdown started and everyone kind of were forced to work from home, that obviously created um, it forced everyone to work digitally and remotely for a while. What we then said is after that is we kind of said that if you want to work from home, you can. But if you want to work from the office, you can obviously come in. I realized during the first hard lockdown, where we were forced to work from home, I realized I need to be in the office. I can't work from home and kind of it's just too hazy for me. Like I need to have a place where I work and I need to have a place where I have my family and my relaxation and that stuff. So for me personally, it was very important to come back in order to actually function optimally in my day-to-day work. Yeah, so I think that's definitely one of the things that we digitally where we had to adjust it, but since then, everyone is back at the office. We do work from here just because we found that it's sitting in an office and working on design work, specifically on the engineering side. It's you do bounce a lot of ideas and questions off each other. And sitting next to the person, it's obviously quicker and easier to just ask
Yeah.
than to video call or Zoom or whatever to ask a silly question. So that's kind of the where we are currently. And then obviously, because we are in the construction industry, there's a lot of physical things that you need to go and check out. So obviously, our side of the business, we are physically busy on site and at different areas and places and stuff. So you obviously need to be there. And then also on the consulting side is there's a lot of developments and projects that's ongoing that you need to go and do your inspections and stuff like that. So I don't think it's the whole digital thing influenced us a lot. If I look at other industries and other people working full time from home, for instance, yeah. So that's pretty much where we currently are.
That might change when you go expand, go nationally or even abroad. So, okay, we close to wrapping up, and therefore I would like the audience to know a little bit more about you personally. So, share with us your favorite books, or what are you currently listening as an audiobook or reading?
Yeah, so currently I'm trying to sleep as much as I can when I can. And I'm reading children's books about butterflies and little doggies and cats and stuff. But yeah, no, on a different note, I'm not reading as much currently, but I have started reading. It's quite an old book, but it's called Results-Based Leadership, where it's specifically my focus on the model of people that needs to be results driven in terms of their work and everything. So it's quite a valuable book for me because at the end of the day, the work that I do here in the office, there needs to be results. It can't be airy fairy
Yeah.
like in the sky. It needs to come down to, do you bring money in for the business or not? So it's quite a good book for me to read currently. Yeah, and then podcasts and online things that I follow. I do like to watch Ben Shapiro's podcast and videos. It's not necessarily business focused, but it's more staying on top of what's happening in the world
Yeah.
yeah, and I like getting his viewpoint on things as well, which is not necessarily so much what the mainstream media tells you a lot of the times. It's more a conservative approach to the day-to-day stuff happening in the world. And then I like the Global Leadership Summit, the videos and the podcasts and stuff that they issue a lot. So I try to kind of, yeah, there's a lot of obviously valuable stuff to watch there. And then with that also TED Talks and things like that. I try to watch every now and then. Yeah, and then also Joe Rogan, I try to watch every now and then if there's someone interesting that he interviews, and yeah, getting but different perspectives of the world from the interesting people that he speak to.
The interesting part for me is that he follows this long form podcast. And when I decided to do my podcast is also to do a longer interview for people to dig into it, to get to understand the business person as well as the business models and technologies and methods and everything, processes that they work with. So we will see how successful this is. But it's so good to introduce different industries to my audience as well. So do you have icons in your specific industry, people you look up to?
Um, when you sent me that question, I had to think a long time about it, and not necessarily big icons. There's a lot of obviously successful business people in the world, but they're not icons. They're very successful, but the way they run their business and treat their people is a bit questionable. So you kind of look up to them in a sense of seeing the success in their business, rather than seeing the success in how they treat their people and so forth. But anyway, so I do look up a lot to Barend, our boss. He's a very good example of someone that runs a company very straightforward without any weird stuff that's not being said. He runs his company very openly. So especially during the time like lockdown, he was very open to us about the financial situation of the company and where we are currently in terms of work coming in and so forth. So I definitely look up a lot to him. And then, yeah, there's people in our industry that you hear of and get to meet, and there's one, or there's two guys that I want to highlight. The one guy is the owner of Darling Roemerij in Darling. Yeah, they employ I don't know, I think it's over 300 people that works for them in the factory, where they obviously produce milk products like milk and yogurt and stuff like that. Any dairy products, yes. Yeah, and I've met him once personally, and he probably won't even remember me. But what I do know about him is he knows all these people's names. So when he walks in the factory, he will literally greet everyone on their name. He knows their families, he knows where they come from. So he's very, yeah, it's really cool to see that a big business guy like that actually still interested in his people. And then recently I heard
Just
about.
tell me, what is his name?
I know they call him Grootbaas Bason, but I'm not sure what his name is. And then I recently heard about another guy that I've no idea who it is or who he is, or maybe she. I'm not sure if it's even a male or female. But I heard that there was a spa owner in Durbanville somewhere in Cape Town, that when lockdown hit and obviously a lot of small businesses were struggling, he actually capped off like his stationery section, for instance, and his bread section, and he put signage up there and said, listen, if you want to buy stationery, rather go to the shop in the little shopping center that sells stationery, and rather go to the local bakery that's just outside our shop to go and buy your bread. And yeah, it's people like that really stands out for me as business owners, where it's not just about yourself and getting the most for yourself, but it's actually thinking about your neighbor and doing stuff to help them. It's not just saying it, but it's actually implementing it and doing it. So it's people like that really motivates me a lot in what I do from a day-to-day basis, and how you operate with your people and communicate with your people and treat your people.
Yeah, it all boils down to community and people, because communities are people. Okay, so we're going to finish off, and this last part I normally do like a rapid answer section. So I'm going to give you one word, and then you can answer with either a short explanation or with one word. So the first word I want to bounce off you is entrepreneurship.
Exciting, challenging, want to do it.
Great. Okay, the second one is fatherhood.
Game changer, love it. Scared sometimes, exciting sometimes. Can't see my life without it.
Kind of the same as entrepreneurship. Scary.
Yeah. Entrepreneurship
Okay.
is also
Masculinity.
necessary in our day and age. Well, gentlemanship, I would say more, or being gentle as a man. Interesting in our industry, where you get a lot of alpha males. Sometimes funny treating people that is suffering from that and dealing with them. Yeah.
Okay. You spoke eloquently about this one, but just a short summary: leadership.
Big responsibility. You need to have faith to be a good leader, in my opinion. A lot to learn, not only from experts, but from your people as well. And necessary for any successful business. Good leadership.
Okay. The second last one is generations.
Yeah, I think generations, not the soapy on SABC1, eh?
No, not that one. But keeping in mind that your mother is a late baby boomer. I'm one of the last baby boomers.
Yeah, if I look at generations to come, I sometimes do get scared a lot because there's so many influences from in the world that just it's going to be a real challenge for them to figure out who they are and what they are good at and what they're supposed to do on this planet Earth. Um, and I see our generations as very vital for them to help our coming generations or the generations to come to help them figure out that stuff.
But you must remember, our generation felt the same about your generation, and my dad's generation felt the same about my generation. So I think generations it makes so much sense.
It does, yes. And we need to sit still for a moment and listen to the previous generations.
Yeah, that's also true. And then the last one, love.
Love. I would say you need it in your life. It's important. It's important not to only receive it, but also to give it. It's not something that's always easy. And it's not always something that's simple, but we need more love in the world and in our country specifically, in terms of people not understanding each other and not knowing where they come from. And yeah, again, just going back to what I previously said, I strongly believe that if you're rooted in your faith, then that is the source of your love and the love that you give to your people.
Burger, I want to thank you for the time we could spend together. As a mum, I can say I'm truly so impressed with what you guys are doing. As a business person, I'm watching this space because I know there's going to be amazing things happening here. I'm proud of you, and please continue, and best of luck with all your endeavors.
Thank you so much. And yeah, thank you for your support over the years and really carrying us through tough times and yeah, creating the opportunity to share a little bit more about who we are and what we do. So thank you.
Bye.